tell everybody, especially on these big projects, do not get overwhelmed. Just one step at a time, one little thing at a time, and eventually the entire project will be together and done. If you start trying to overthink everything, nothing will ever happen. So I'm kind of at that point right now, and it's just time to start hacking it together. So after all of my measurements and design work and everything, I do have the first bar placed where it is going to be. Everything is measured, squared, and set up, and I do have a plan for how to build the framework for the door so that I can bolt the stainless trim pieces in without having to weld or modify those at all. They should just bolt right into place, and then it should overlap this first board when it closes, and everything will be fine. We'll worry about how we're going to trim out the front and back of the door and everything once we get it together, but I do have a pretty good idea on all of that. So my plan is to copy what I did on this driver's side over there on the passenger side, get that bar put in, and then right on this crease, this bend line that I put in the center panel, kind of where I thought it was going to be, is where we're going to trim this panel down so that the door will set flush with these bars and all the boards will be nice and flush all the way across. I'm going to add 2 little 5-inch bars up in the front of the tubs just to strengthen everything, because that is where all of the weight and pressure and everything from the actuators and everything is going to be. And then being that there's only a spot right here on the top where this center is attached to the sides, I'm making these little pieces here that will close that in and strengthen all of this corner up really nice. So go ahead and get those chopped up, get that done, and then we should be on to fabricating the door and just getting that all squared up and in. So. This is the bed floor frame, the door setup. I've got it clamped in place with a nice 1/4-inch gap all the way around it. And then the angle iron piece that I mounted to the sides that will catch that hidden bed strip has the holes drilled in it for those to mount on. I did mark this center bar for the 5 holes where the other hidden strips will go, or the other hidden strip hardware will go on both of these bars. And then I've got it squared up with a nice little cross piece up front. Look how tight I got that one. Right into the corner, and I lined it up.
Too tight or good?
No, it's perfect.
I see. You're just trying to tell me how cool you are.
Yeah.
Oh.
I could have nailed it any closer than that.
Go, Bender, go!
And I got the speed like perfect. There's like 2-3 little pieces of slag on it. That's it. But I've got 4 of them right now. So I can either do that and frame in both of these. The reason I'm doing this is because when I went to take the clamp off, it kind of moved a little bit. I don't want this thing freaking moving at all when I take it off the welder. So yeah, I can frame this whole thing in and do 4 of them, or I've got 4 now, so I can do 1, 2, 3, 4. Amy and I got the door off of the truck, or the floor, whatever you want to call it. Had it laying here nice and flat on the concrete, and I'm going to go ahead and get everything welded up underneath. I ended up going with 4 gussets in this back section, and when I took the clamps off in the truck, once it cooled, it did not wiggle or move even a 1/16 of an inch. So that will definitely hold it square for me, especially once the boards and everything are on it. That's just going to help. So I'm going to go ahead and get all of these joints, the underside of all of these joints welded that I couldn't get when it was on the truck. And then Amy and I are going to put this back into the bed, get it clamped in place, and just let it sit overnight, get good and cool, make sure it doesn't get any twists or bends in it or anything like that. And by then, my bearings will be here, and we can start working on getting this thing hinging and moving. Not on its own yet. We'll get to that. Alright, I checked, double checked, use a punch, because this 1/8 inch hole that we're putting in everything is what's going to tell everything else where it goes. So this needs to be exactly in the right spot. Alright, so I've been stepping this hole up a little bit at a time. The hole on the inside here will eventually be centered and opened up to 7/8, and I'll probably end up doing most of that with the die grinder. I do have a step bit, but this stuff is pretty thick, so I'm not sure if that's going to do it as nicely as I would like, and I want that bearing to fit nice and snug in there. So this hole on the inside, on the other hand, is not going to be carrying a bearing. It's just basically needs to be opened up enough for the bolt to pass, and we'll start building the bearing surface that's going on this outside. I used a chunk of this framing as my spacer, because when I lay it on this 3/4 inch angle iron that I have welded in there to attach the trim pieces, it leaves me with a nice 1/4 inch gap around the outside of the door. So I'm going to use one of these for my bearing surface on this other side. But now I just need to get this opened up on both sides, and we should be good to go with this one. And that should be more than enough for a 3/8 bolt to go through. So these are the bearings I got. They've got a little flange on them, 7/8 OD with about a millimeter or so of flange around the outside. So those I'll be able to press in nice, and they won't be able to go too far in. So my plan on this, you can see it's not 3/16 wall, it's 1/8 wall, but you can see the end there. This is my bearing that I will be putting in here. So I'm going to take the welder, weld up these corners, and then take the die grinder and open it up so that this bearing slips right in there. And then I will cut it to the width I need. So I got both of the bearings in. The door side is ready to go. This is the bolt that I'll be using. Slides right in. There we go. So now, get the nuts welded into the frame and we can test fit this thing. Not nearly as heavy as I thought. Well, it goes to there. This is where it would hit the air ride stuff. And
Which is way higher.
It'll never go that high.
The actuator arms aren't that long. Fucking awesome.
So Amy and I got this thing wrestled back in. It really wasn't all that bad. There's only 2 bolts that have to go in where I had the nuts welded into the frame. Bearings, everything are all set in place. And it moves, nothing hits. It will go way higher than it will ever go with the setup on it from Dakota Digital. My only concern is making sure I've got enough room with the exhaust down there for the little cantilever setup and the hind joints and everything to fit without anything hitting. But yeah, let's get those parts in and make this thing do it on its own. Now that I've got that together, I made these 2 1/4-inch plates. I'm going to drill those 4 outside holes, and those will get spot welded right to the back side of the box back there underneath the frame. The 2 lines here will be the outside edge of the frame so that we line it up in the same spot on each side. And then the 2 dashes in the middle there are what we need to drill and tap so that this bracket here will mount and actually mount the backside of the actuator. So I'm going to get the drill out, start drilling and tapping these things, get them spot welded into the cab here, because that'll give us a nice fat footprint, some good square inch surface for all of that weight to go against, and then I will get the 2 slugs put in the top of the frame rails, and we can put this whole thing together, get the bed floor back in, and then we can start messing around with these tie rods that actually connect the cantilever setup to the box or to the bed floor. Alright, so now that all of the measurements are done, I've got a couple of like 5/16, 3/8 inch hole, I think they were 3/8 inch holes drilled through the bar about where I want them. So the upper part, I'm going to take the die grinder and open it up, because I'm going to use these little coupler nuts that are designed for like putting pieces of all thread together. And this will drop down in the top part of the hole. I'm going to leave the lower hole the size it is now, and I'll actually bolt the piece on where I want it, weld this thing in place, it'll come off. I know it's right where it needs to be to go in. So let's go ahead and throw that together, and we can move on. That is tightened in where I want it. These pieces stick up above. In through my hole, I can go ahead and weld these up all the way around, and I know they're going to be in the right spot to put this in. These I'm simply putting in, keep any weld slag from falling down in there, screwing up my threads. The bed is all mocked up, and we are ready to do a little test run to make sure she goes up and down. I followed the directions best I could, but we did have some issues with the exhaust and some routing going on there, so we really want to see if this is still going to operate with a few of the measurements a little bit different. I did strengthen where it mounts to the back of the bed back here, so that we have a nice plate, and I think it's like 16 square inches that thing can really push against. It's not nearly as heavy as we thought it was going to be, but let's see how she goes. And up we go. Yes, sir. Is about our limit, which is way higher than I thought it was going to go. That is amazing. It's perfect. We've got good clearance around everything. So I'm going to go ahead and get this thing welded in for good and start putting some wood on it. This is my deal here. I made a template out of an old piece of bedwood. It's the same thickness, it's not the same width, which is fine as long as it lines up on the edge. This template works really well on both sides. So if I flip it around with that hole towards the back, it lines up on this side pretty well. So I took that, I scribed it onto the actual piece of wood we're going to use. I marked it 1/4 inch shy, so I've got room to really whittle and get it fitting in there well. So I'm going to cut it this 1/4 inch smaller than what my template is, and we're going to start shaving and getting this thing to flop in there. Okay, that took a couple of hours to get that thing shaved and sanded to fit perfectly, but we've got that in, at least the driver's side one. And then I welded in some tabs. I'm going to grind these things smooth yet, but I've got 4 tabs on each side going down the rail here, just so that I wouldn't have to drill a hole through that 1x. This will make it a lot stronger. Every one of them drill holes would just make a weak point in the frame, so this is way better. So there will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 screws holding each one of the outside boards on. And then these center 6 boards will just get held on by the trim strips. So let's go ahead and get this passenger one all carved out and in place. We can get the rest of these boards on and test the movement of this thing and see if we can get all those strips to line up and look like there isn't a door here at all. Both side rails are now trimmed, sanded, and in place, and I have started to get the main boards done. We're doing a 1/2 inch routed edge along the front and along the rear. And then I made a couple of dimples in this first board, just so I've got a little room for adjustment when we go ahead and put that strip in to make sure it's good and centered. And then here's our piece of angle iron that will be welded along the front side of the box. And if you pull one of these boards forward, you can see I routed that edge as well. So that should give me plenty of room. This door right here, this will separate from this metal angle iron piece. So when the door goes up, this drops down, and when it comes back up, it'll seal up against that piece. So very happy with how that is coming along. I've got 3 more boards to do, and then we can start attaching them to the door frame with the new hidden hardware stainless strips that we've got. Get this thing all bolted together, and then we'll give her one more test run while it's all in one piece. Make sure nothing's hitting, grinding, smacking into itself anywhere. And then we'll try putting the tailgate on and see if we have enough clearance when this thing lifts up to clear the door handle.